Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Whiskey Wednesday night here on the Master Drum. Hope you guys are ready for a wonderful night of knowledge and nerding out with our special guest tonight. Not only do we have Brent Elliott coming on to talk about all things Four Roses, but we also have some great pours that we're going to be sharing tonight as well, talking about everything Four Roses. And as you can tell, I'm really just excited to have him on. So it's going to be a really fun night. What is going on, everybody in the chat? If you are here, if you are hanging out, we already have almost 200 people lining up here in the chat. So please hit that like button as you come in. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button as I make my way towards 100,000 subscribers. Just hit 94,000, so 94.1 actually. So we're climbing. We're getting there. 2025 hopefully is the year. And we will hit it. So I just appreciate everybody's support and everybody kind of chiming in during the Advent calendar series. It's been fun. The Grinch, everybody's calling me pork chop now, which is pretty hilarious. It's yeah, I've got about 100 messages with that. So it's been fun. I don't know why I do it to myself, but there you go. All right, let's get to the chat real quick. Let's say hi to some folks. We got William Wiley is here. We got Gene Mel. He says, hey, all. What's up, Gene? Joey B is here. Got to have you on the live stream. Brent Elliott. Cheers to everyone in the chat. Let's see. Palo Crack Don is here. Oh yeah, the bat. Everyone's talking about the series because William Wiley was watching the Penguin series, which is probably one of the best series I've seen on TV in quite a while. There you go. Let's effing go, pork chop. It's already starting. T. Jarrett is here. What's going on, man? We got Mike Daly. We got Stacy from Four Leaf Whiskey. What's going on, Stacy? Nice to see you. Come on, pork chop. Thank you, Scott Hayes. Sandeep Cheem is here. Warren Smith. Happy Four Roses Wednesday. Nice to see you, man. We got Rob D is here. Adam Hess. Nathan Jurgensen is here. Four Roses LE24 in the Glen. Yeah, I might pour that next, actually. John Wybush is here. We got Rishi Bafsar is here. Pork chop got me expired. Justin Jenkins, Tim Romero, Robert W is here. Top Jimmy in the house. Always good to see you. Kenneth Rackburn is here. Sorry you got a cold, man. Hopefully you feel better. Bourbon Engineer. Robot Scott is here. What is going on, Scott? Nice to see you as well. Dr. Ed is here. Dr. Sped, I should say. He was the Advent blind. The submission came from Ed today, so he's the one that sent that blue note along. That was tricky. There was a lot going on in that bourbon, a lot of different finishes. I think I mainly picked up on the sherry and the orange, so the Vino de Naranja maturation that was in there. I think those are the main ones I picked up on. But I was getting kind of the George Dickel whiskey in it, but that's why I kind of went Bardstown on the guess. Rather than like Blue Note didn't even enter my mind. I had never even seen that whiskey. So thanks for sending that along, man. Tim Romero may have to pop the LE for this stream. Dude, pour it. Join us. Russ Ellis here. Cool running. Ed Williams is here. What's up, Ed? Nice to see you, man. Let's see. A-Brod, Ham Turkey, Connoisseur Cigar. Eric, nice to see you, buddy. We got Josh Fritz is here. What's up, Fritzy? Norman Conklin's here. Happy holidays. Happy holidays to you as well. Isaac C is here. Tim Cornet, Jeff Perkins, Callie Drams. We got Aaron G. We got Burr Ben in the house. What's up, Whiskey Uncensored? Nice to see you, buddy. Prescription Bourbon is here. What's going on, David? Dustin Botek is here. Jay will drink. Let's go. Matthew M. Nice to see you as always. Waiting for this all week, he says. Tom Shanley is here. Eric Sawyer. And let me kind of Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Yo, what's up, man? Nice to see you. Thanks for joining in. I don't think I've seen you before. Lonnie Berry is here. John Webster. A lot of Four Roses fans chiming in tonight, which is good to see. Wise Guy Stu, you the man. Let's get some regular barrel proof Four Roses releases. Yeah, we will ask Brent about that. First super chat of the night comes from Tony Bag of Donuts. Cheers, Jason and Mr. Elliott. I've been lucky enough to try your 2016 Select twice. 14-year OESK is without a doubt a top 3 whiskey I've ever had. My reaction was it's laughing at me. So to that, I say thank you, sir. We got Big Vic in the house. What's up, Vic? And a bunch more people coming in. I'm just got to catch up here. Rob D with another $20 super chat. Rob D with the Four Roses. Thank you so much. We got Black Bourbon families here, Jason and Brandy. And all right, I'm going to shut up now because there's a lot of people coming in here. To all of you that super chatted, I'll give you this one.
I love you. I love you. I love you.
So thank you so much, guys, for those super chats. Appreciate it. And yeah, so I have started tonight with my Master Journey Four Roses pick. This is an OESK 10-year, 2 months old. And I know everyone's probably going to ask Brent what his favorite recipe is. And so we'll see what he says. Andy Schneider says Juan Soto is a Yankee. Did he re-sign with the Yankees? Because if he did, I kind of. Oh no, Tony Bag of Donuts. Brent got to see it. He's backstage. He saw it. So don't worry, man. I'm actually kind of glad he's back on the Yankees. I didn't want the Mets to pay $600 million for him. So that actually kind of makes me happy. All right. Kenneth Rathburn is guessing his favorite is a V. Well, we'll see. All right, guys. So keep the super chats coming. And again, as you come in here, please hit the like button and subscribe if you're first time here. Appreciate it. So let's get into it, guys. So today's guest became Master Distiller at Four Roses in September of 2015 and has been involved in producing award-winning premium bourbon since he began working with the company in 2005. As Master Distiller, he ensures that each bottle of Four Roses is handcrafted with the same passion and quality that the brand has maintained since 1888. That's right. Excuse me. That's right. It's been around that long. Named Master Distiller Blender of the Year at the 2020 Icons of Whisky America Awards ceremony. He is particularly proud of Small Batch Select, the distillery's newest permanent product line extension since 2006. It's also his biggest addition to the storied history of the 132-year-old brand since he became Master Distiller. He also blends the incredible Four Roses LE releases each and every year, which we will get into. He's a native of Owensboro, Kentucky, and this is his first time ever on the Master and Drum. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, the man, the myth, the legend, Brent Elliott.
How's it going, everyone? And Jason.
I think we surprised Brent a little. He's like, what do I say?
Yeah, I really am going to pop up on this screen. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate you jumping on. And I think I just got to ask you right away, what's in the glass?
Small batch select.
Oh, small batch select.
Yeah,
okay.
I feel outgunned looking at what you have surrounding you, both bottles and your background. I've got a couple of old Four Roses posters here and a white wall, and you've got the Grinch and
the Grinch is holding a Al Young bottle, which is one of my prized possessions. So I may open that when I turn 50. I'll crack that open maybe. And then, if we have the bottle cam here. So we have the Four Roses Small Batch Select kind of front and center. This is the pick we did, and this is the regular single barrel offering. Also, I have a couple of your LEs here, and also a really cool decanter. I don't know if you've seen this before. I wanted to show this to you. Have you ever seen this decanter, Brent?
I don't know if I've seen that one. There are a lot of old ones from the 50s and 60s, a lot of unique designs. That one, I don't think I've seen that one. So, maybe in print, but I don't think I've seen one in person.
Yeah, so my girlfriend's mom actually found this at like a random what do you call it? Like a random estate sale, a garage sale or something. And I was like, that is beautiful. And apparently when I looked it up, it's some sort of like bicentennial release decanter bottle. When I was trying to look it up, it's pretty cool. I cleaned it out. I may use it as my own decanter at some point, but we'll see. All right. So Brent, tell us a little bit about, your background, just to kind of kick things off here, for those of, anybody in the audience that really don't know your journey, kind of quickly tell us about your background in bourbon, how you eventually landed, the gig at Master Distiller, pretty big bourbon producer.
Okay. I think, the one common path you'll see with a lot of Master Distillers is a background in some kind of, science. And my background's chemistry.
Okay.
I grew up in Kentucky, went to the University of Kentucky, graduated with a degree in chemistry. Never dreamt I'd be making bourbon. Started drinking it. I started not drinking it right. I was drinking a lot of bourbon and Cokes in college. But a few years after college, I actually started to appreciate whiskey. I think it started on the rocks, then eventually neat.
Mm-hmm.
That was all pre-Four Roses. I still didn't ever imagine that I could get into the industry. Then I took a tour of Woodford Reserve back in 2005. And, back then that was, sort of pre-bourbon boom.
Yeah.
So I was applying for a job at Four Roses, which I didn't even know what Four Roses was.
Mm-hmm.
And it was easy to get an interview, and I guess easy to get hired because I got hired, or they offered me the job pretty much the same day that I interviewed. It took me a few weeks to decide whether or not to take it, but I eventually, as I was living in Nashville, I'd just gotten married, just bought a house. We thought our lives were all set, and we're on the path to building a life together in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
But so it took a little deciding, a lot of discussions and back and forth. But ultimately, I decided to come up and start a job. Basically, it was an entry-level position working the lab, doing analysis. But Four Roses, we might get into the story later. I won't go dig in too deeply now, but we'd been as a bourbon export only for many years. So when I interviewed, you could only get Four Roses straight bourbon either in Japan or Europe or in Kentucky only. And in Kentucky, it was just a few thousand cases. So
yeah, and it was pretty wildly popular in Japan, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it still is. It's still a big brand for us over there.
Okay.
And Europe too. I think France is our number 3 market. And we sell. The thing is, they don't drink as much bourbon over there in France.
I was just going to say, they drink bourbon in France?
They don't, but when they do, it's very likely that it's Four Roses. That's a good way to put it.
Because I mean, honestly, the only obviously I've heard of the La Maison du whiskey shops where the kind of the Blanton single barrels and stuff. But I'm trying, yeah. So Four Roses out there makes sense considering it's so popular in Japan as well.
Yeah. So when I started, it was like at the distillery, it was kind of a skeleton crew. There weren't many folks in management at that time because we'd been just an arm of Seagram's. The big company that had bottling facilities. They had the headquarters in New York. They had different bottling, or they had a blending facility, research facilities, different distilleries. It was just this huge network of different companies that all worked in coordination. And, we were just, all we knew how to do in Lawrenceburg was receive the grains, mill it, mash it, ferment it, distill it, and put it on a truck. Like that was all we did. We didn't have human resources. We didn't have sales, marketing, accounting. We didn't have any of that. We just had strictly production. So that all changed in about 2002. We started to try to build that. But when I started, it was still, we were a very slim crew. And so even though it's just hired to do essentially analysis, I very quickly started to pitch in across the board. Anything that had to do with quality, whether it was the quality of grains, quality of distillate, quality of even like the labels and corks in the bottles, like just across the board. And that was exciting because I got to work with, that's Jim, Al, John Ray, the guy that hired me and trained me on the whole sensory and blending side of it, Joda Tanaka. You may know that name, and he's still with Kirin, our parent company. He's the master blender for the Fuji Gotemba distillery.
Yes, I have come across his name before, just reading press releases of some different blends that's been coming out. So yeah.
So I got to work with those guys and basically grow and pitch in, and I essentially just grew with the company. As I mentioned, we were selling just a few thousand cases at the time. Within a few years, we were expanding outside the state of Kentucky. Within 5 or 6 years, we're in all 50 states, and we're just growing. It was almost an alarming rate, and it was so alarming that about 2013, I think it was, we realized if we kept growing at that rate, we'd run out of liquids. So that's when we did all the expansion projects in the bottling facility, the distillery, started adding warehouses. But it was just, and looking back, it's just kind of a blur. All I've known is just trying to keep up, trying to catch up, growth, adding facilities, adding equipment, adding people, and so I just kind of rode that wave. And since I was there, learning from some of the greatest in the industry, always willing to pitch in. In 2015, when Jim decided he was going to retire, he didn't tell anyone. I got called into the CEO's office, and she sat me down and told me a few things. One, Jim's retiring. First, that was almost as shocking as what came next, because I never thought Jim would retire.
Mm-hmm.
The thing she said next was, and you're going to be, she didn't ask me, she just told me, she said, you're going to be the next master distiller. And the third thing she told me was I couldn't tell anyone for like 2 or 3 weeks until the official announcement. So that's the 5-minute.
So that's how you found out. They basically told you you're going to be the master distiller.
Yeah, I guess they realized I wasn't going to say no. But honestly, I was shocked at both those revelations, because I never thought Jim would retire.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still out there working.
Yeah, he's still consulting, and he's still putting out great blends. So yeah,
I think maybe he actually retired for. It wasn't long. He got back into it shortly afterward. I still remember like the whole transition took place in September during Bourbon Festival, and we were at the sampler together.
Mm-hmm.
This was the Thursday. I don't think they do it anymore, but it was the Thursday, sort of kicking off, and they did this whole. I guess it was a farewell toast to Jim, and he said something. I wish I could remember what it was. It was something like I guess he was kind of, he was emotional. It was kind of touching. He's like, oh, maybe I won't retire. He was kind of, but he was joking, and I was like, he may not be joking. It was like, because I was still like, he loves this too much.
Yeah,
I can't imagine him not.
So was that in between you getting the announcement or being told that you're going to be master distiller and the announcement? So somewhere in between that happened?
Oh, it had already been announced.
Oh, okay.
But I'm sure if he had said, never mind, I'm going to stick around for 5 more years, and everyone would be like, okay, you come on back, do 5 more years or whatever. But that was the transition. It was September 2015. It was like 10 years to the day of me starting. Because actually, when I started the week of Bourbon Festival in 2005. Man,
talk about being thrown right into it, huh?
It was fun. I was really excited about what I got myself into, because everyone was too busy. We were hosting people who were doing Let's Talk Bourbon. We had the gala. We had everything on the lawn. So no one had any time to really even do more than say, hey, to the new guy.
Yeah.
And so I was just wandering around talking to guests. And I remember after Let's Talk Bourbon, we were short. We would have, because we'd have so many people on site taking tours, anyone that was in a distillery or anyone that knew anything about anything would just take groups to the distillery. And I was just standing there like, hey, Brent, is that your name? Like, give these folks a tour. And I'd been through the distillery once, and it was during my interview.
Uh-huh.
And so I went through and I was winging it. I was pointing it's like, gotta have confidence and it'll all work out. I don't think anyone knew any better.
Yeah. Hey, man, just act like you own it, man. You might as well. You know what I mean? Yeah. Well, this actually is a great question from Ham Turkey, because it kind of leads me into my next question. So here it says, how many barrels did they have in storage in around 2002? So that kind of gives me, so you could, feel free to answer that compared to where you have now. But what have been kind of the biggest changes that you've seen from when you've become master distiller until now? Just not so much. Yes, the bourbon industry has definitely changed quite a bit. Obviously, Four Roses has changed, but what do you feel for you personally with those biggest changes?
For me, probably, and I guess this is the distillery too, but getting through like all the expansion and all the change, and getting through unscathed.
Yeah.
I'm asked all the time, especially when it's like, you got some big shoes to fill. Are you nervous? And first I was like, well, the thing I'm most nervous about is public speaking. But it turns out when I know what I'm talking about, I'm not too nervous about it. I just never stood in front of a group without winging it before,
I mean, but I think it comes off more natural that way, to be honest. When you're just kind of up there and talking, I feel like I like it better that way than when you're scripted. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. And I'm not arguing politics. I'm talking about corn and barley and wooden barrels. It's a little more lighthearted, I guess. What I get.
Yeah. So what were those? I mean, you talked about working with Jim and Al and basically industry legends. What do you feel like? I mean, obviously you learned a ton from them, but what are some of those I guess, milestone moments working with them that you take into your everyday, your everyday life at the distillery now?
It's hard to really pinpoint anything. It's like when you're just immersed in that environment, and those guys were part of that environment, integral to that.
Yeah.
That was what I lived in for 10 years working with Jim, 15 with Al. Now I'd only been there about 3 or 4 years when he moved from his role as distillery manager to brand ambassador. But even then, I was working with him a lot in that capacity, and even more so when I transitioned to Master Distiller. So, I can remember a few different Als. The Al that I was learning from, when I was also learning from the other, Jim and the other production folks that were just part of that culture, and then the Al that I'd get to travel with, and I probably learned as much, if not more, from Al, just with about history and how to tell the story. Because he was an entertainer, and he knew history, not just of Four Roses, but of just all things bourbon. Well, he knew history. I mean, he was a Civil War buff.
Yeah,
loved history. It just came naturally to him, and he would tell the story, and it wouldn't just be like, in 1900 this happened, in 1905 this happened. He would tell the story. You wouldn't even hear the dates, but you understood the whole story by the time he was finished, and you were just enthralled and entertained. And you're like, well, damn, I was learning. Look at that. Didn't even know it.
Yeah, like from your perspective, I can imagine you just watching him. It's like, okay, this is how I tell the story of Four Roses when I am in front of those people doing public speaking in an entertaining manner. And, it's probably the best way to keep his legacy alive. You know what I mean?
Oh, it is. And I still regret, because I would travel from a lot, and sometimes he'd talk for a while, and then he'd hand it off to me and I'd talk. And it's every time like, that's something new. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him this probably a half dozen times in the 2 years before he passed away. It's like, we need to sit down, Al. We need to just lock ourselves in a room, and I need to write all this down. There's no way, because it's not something that's just in a book. It's bits and pieces that he'd compiled from conversations, real research, not just Googling stuff like what I do 90% of the time when I'm trying to polish up on bourbon history or Four Roses history. Like we have an archive room that's all the archives that, bottles, ads, documents that he would just collect. That was, his passion. So, but unfortunately, I thought we had all the time in the world. It's like, yeah, we'll do it, next month, next quarter, whatever. But I really wish we'd gotten to sit down with him and really, document everything that he knew. I wish we'd had more time with him. And I always tell people, if you met him, you're lucky. Congratulations. If you didn't, I'm sorry, because he was, truly, a remarkable person, remarkable storyteller.
Yeah, I think every story I've heard about him is basically the words you just said. I was never fortunate enough to meet him. I probably got into bourbon a little too late, but every story I've heard about him has been pretty second. Like, he was basically a second to none human being, and he loved Four Roses. And I'm glad you got to work with him and others around you, because I think it makes a big difference in the brand.
Oh, certainly. And again, like I said, I couldn't think of just one instance of something I learned from him or Jim or the other guys. But one thing that it was kind of outside the realm of production, also with Jim, but I always admired and how he would, I guess, take time to talk to anyone that had questions about bourbon. Even back, when we didn't really have official tours. Like, if you stopped by, yeah, we had a little gift shop, but it wasn't like we had tours every hour. It was kind of. It was in infancy, really. We were just trying to really wrap our head around people wanting to come in droves to see how we made whiskey. And, whether it was just people wandering around on our grounds, or if I was out, maybe working events with Jim, just how much he was, he understood, people's curiosity, and realized that he held the key that was, it's easy to give, like, to answer a question. It's maybe something that's just so obvious from the inside, but just taking 5-10 minutes, and he would take as much time as was needed to answer questions, spend time with folks, again, out on the circuit, or at the distillery. So I was always impressed by that, and it's always something that I feel like I tried to emulate, and just because I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of going back, do you remember your first sip of Four Roses?
Absolutely.
So what struck you about the brand, or what struck you about the whiskey you were tasting?
Well, I remember very much because I was already scheduled to interview before I'd even tried it.
Okay.
Living in Tennessee, my interview was scheduled for like Wednesday morning. My wife and I drove up and stayed in Frankfort the night before, and I couldn't get Four Roses in Tennessee. So I talked to someone, the recruiter, I think, sort of the liaison for this, but I was like, can you ask someone at Four Roses where I can even get a bottle in Kentucky? Because it wasn't easy to find even in Kentucky then. And they said, well, there's a place, it's Chuck's Liquors in Bowling Green, and it's on the route. And so I stopped by on the way up, bought one bottle of single barrel, and I tried it the night before and absolutely fell in love with it. And so the very next day, I was like, I love the whiskey. I was like, I just hope everyone here, because honestly, my idea of Four Roses wasn't that great at the time, because I'd been drinking bourbon. I'd never heard of it. I'd never seen a bottle on the shelf.
What were you drinking beforehand? Was there any brands that you were really enjoying on your own?
I was sampling a lot of different things. And what's funny is I remember distinctly what I was drinking during that time, because when I was interviewing, Joda Tanaka, who was interviewing me, asked me the same question. And I was honest. And
I swear I'm not interviewing you. I'm just asking.
And I'm
kind of interviewing you, but yeah.
But I remember this clearly. So I know at that specific point in time, I was drinking a bottle of Old Crow.
Oh, okay.
And I think I was like, well, that was my answer to him. But I was trying a lot of different bourbons. But I mean, at the time, when I say a lot of different bourbons, I mean, how many were there? I might have been trying, in that time period. Once I started to appreciate bourbon, I might have had 7 different labels, and that might have been 60% of what was even on the market.
Yeah.
Wild Turkey, Woodford Reserve, probably Heaven Hill thrown in there.
Mm-hmm.
That's 30% of all the distilleries that existed, that anyone really knew about in 2000.
Yeah, when you compare it to today, what's out there on the market, it's not even close.
Yeah, I've maybe had 1% of what's on the market now. In 2005, when I was a novice, I'd had probably 75%.
Yeah,
it's remarkable, just the growth.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I mean, let's talk about that a little bit. Kind of so Four Roses famously distills 10 separate bourbons, which can be, mixed into virtually, different types of blends. When you started working at Four Roses, were all those 10 recipes already there? Were they there the whole time? Were some being used more than others? And, what is it like working with 10 recipes each and every day? Is it just something that it's so automated? I mean, and you could be honest, it's something that's so automated now, you don't really have to think about it? Or does each recipe have its specific type of care that you need to attend to it?
Well, we treat them all the same as far as in-house propagation of the yeast.
Okay.
Pitching rates, fermentation or mashing profiles, the set temperature, the control temperature, the fermentation time. That they all behave relatively similarly, so we don't have to really make any adjustments as far as the parameters, production parameters. But it is something you just kind of get used to. Okay. And I kind of realized that when we started adding mash bills, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, later. We'll get into the added mash bills. I think a lot of people are curious about that one. So
Yeah, I was so used to dealing with 10 and, it's just how we do things that then we started looking at, it's like, okay, 2 new mash bills, 10 more recipes, 20 recipes. So that's tough. It really is tough. And it's something it's not my title, and I'm getting away from it now a little bit more, but for the last I've been doing this since 2009, but all the inventory planning, like management, like deciding, the master distiller, I decide what batches go where based on quality, but I also have to look at, I have to solicit Europe for their forecast, Japan for their forecast, US forecast, and they always change. And
Yep.
they have to go out about at least 7 to 10 years. And then backing that, you take all that forecast every year going out, look at our current inventory, and that has to be broken into different recipes, and you have to account for evaporation, and then all that change, moving all that around. And it got to the point where it was really taking up probably 30 to some weeks 50% of my time doing that. And so that's when I say 20 recipes. How in the world is this?
Well, yeah, let's talk about them here. So this announcement was made, and if anybody has not seen this yet, these are the 2 new mash bills that Four Roses has announced. They're 43% rye, 52% corn, 5% malted barley, which is now their highest rye mash bill. And I think a mash bill that a lot of people are very, very excited about is that 85% corn, 10% rye, 5% malted barley mash bill, which is now their new lowest rye mash bill. So as far as a lot of the questions kind of leading up to tonight was, when you guys made that announcement, where were you at with those mash bills? Are those mash bills already aging? How far out are we? Are we talking about, obviously if you can't say a lot of this, then feel free not to, but if you can, I think a lot of folks just kind of want to know, are we close to seeing these utilized from a line extension standpoint at any point, or just blended into something, or will these just be kind of single barrel offerings in the beginning?
Well, I can be totally open about it, even though I shouldn't be because it's kind of embarrassing.
Yes.
I don't know yet.
Oh, man.
I mean, I have a lot of ideas, probably the same as you guys. These could end up doing anything, honestly.
Yeah.
And I have, ideally, if they all mature the way they should, and it's not a far reach. I mean, we're not using different grains here, and we all.
Well, yeah. You're just switching up the recipes, and I mean, for me, I'm really curious to see what that 85% corn mash bill does with the different yeast strains. To be honest.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that because I think so many people are asking for a rye whiskey and have, for as long as I remember.
I've already gotten this about 25 times in the chat. I think people are clamoring because you guys generally have high rye mash bills. I mean, and now you have a new highest rye mash bill, and you have obviously a low rye mash bill. It feels like it's the next maybe line extension is to get into a rye whiskey from Four Roses. Has this come out quite often in the last couple of years, or even before that?
Yeah, and that's actually kind of what started the whole conversation about new mash bills anyway. And we started looking at what we do best. It was almost like, okay, do we keep our 10 recipes? And it's all about the blending and sort of that behind the scenes, how we can create so much variety with what we make.
Yeah.
And I think the downside is if you cross that line and all of a sudden it's a rye whiskey, it's two products. You can't really. I mean, you could cross them, and it wouldn't be a straight bourbon, but you could cross them over. But we were thinking, let's stay true to the core. Yep. Not that we won't do a rye whiskey. We could still very likely or very possibly do one the next couple of years.
Okay.
We don't have plans for it, but it's still total possibility. We thought, well, let's focus on expanding what we're doing within the bourbon guidelines. Let's keep it under 51% corn, or keep it over 51% corn, and stick with the rye, because that is kind of that Four Roses profile. A lot of it hangs its hat on that rye character.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Have you? Because I'm just trying to picture what like a rye whiskey, like if you did ever create a rye whiskey, and then you apply those different yeast strains to the rye, what that does to the different. I mean, honestly, it's another 5 recipes if you think about it. You kind of throw more yeast strains on the one rye whiskey and see what it does.
Oh yeah, and that's exactly what we would do.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing all these like different mash bills and like that example, if we were to do a rye, it really makes me appreciate what startup distilleries are faced with. I just dropped into Four Oaks. We had everything kind of, we knew what this recipe tastes like at 6 years, 8 years, 10 years. Everything was set, and we kind of had the template for how to design and work with what we had. But starting from scratch with a million possibilities, as far as mash bill or yeast strains or whatever, starting that, how do you approach it? Do you say you're going to go all in, and say we did a rye and say, okay, we're going to go all in.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do 65% rye, and it's going to be V. And we're going to make that, until it's 6 years, 7 years, and release it and hope it's good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
7 years, be like, oh man, we should have used the O. Because you don't know. Or do you make a little bit of each?
That's what I was gonna say. Just make 5 barrels of pick a mash bill, make 5 barrels, apply those different yeast strains to them, and see what comes out. And I mean, I know you're talking about a long game because you're gonna want to put out the best whiskey possible. And you'll probably have to wait 5, 6, 7 years until that barrel's ready before you're like, okay, I think the K or the V works the best. Let's release it with this. But now you're committed. Now you got to put more whiskey into a ton of more barrels for another 7 years. So you're talking about 12 to 14 years out.
Exactly. So that's kind of the idea behind the 2 new mash bills. That's basically how we approached it. All 5 yeast strains with the higher rye, all 5 with the lower rye. And we're kind of, threading the needle here, I guess, straddling the fence, because it's a healthy volume, but we're not going to release a huge product in 6, 7 years. It would probably be, maybe an experimental small batch, depending on how these different recipes work together, maybe even 2. Certainly, I think some of these will have to end up as private barrels. I know that, and that's going to happen.
Yeah, when those 2 mash bills are up for the single barrel program, you're going to have a line out the door. People are going to want to taste them. People are going to want to get their hands on them, especially if it's and that's the other question. How do you, now you're talking about another 10 recipes. How does that, because already you go see Mandy at a pick and you have 10 blind barrels to pick from. Are we going to have 2 trays of 10 whiskeys now? Or is it going to be like new mash bill day versus old mash bill day? Like, how does that even work?
Yeah. And I'll let Mandy kill me when that time comes. We'll see.
Or you just start pulling barrels. Yeah, you just start pulling barrels that are interesting. You put them in the program and see what people pick.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Like, going into this, there were so many what ifs, and there's so many reasons that it's complicated and it's difficult to do. But we're like, forget that. We have to do this, and it's going to be good. We'll figure out what we're going to do with it. And, I'm thinking that probably 3 years, the barrels will have enough of their, character to get an idea. So it won't be 7 years before we double down on whatever direction these go.
All right. So these new mash bills have been in the barrel for quite a bit of time already.
Well, actually, no. Like, when we announced it, I think at that time we had only done a few lots of the high rye and the low rye, just to make sure that, because we knew the fermentation wasn't going to be an issue. The only potential issue was going to be the mashing profile, just because it's different volumes and heat transfer. A lot more corn. High rye, you sometimes worry about the viscosity, those sorts of things.
different enzymes, pH, all those things you have to worry about.
Yeah, so we were focused on that. So we did a few I think we did just half lots, which are just 4 fermenters. So we did a couple half lots just to make sure that we make sure nothing went wrong, essentially,
Yeah.
and tweak any of the parameters that we need to tweak. So we made our changes, and then that's about the time we announced it. And as we announced it, we just worked those other recipes into the production schedule. So it's like the next, like probably right after the announcement, the next run of O's we did, and we might do, a run of O's in the spring, a run of O's in the fall. Same thing for like the F's and the Q's. V's and K's, we run those.
Yeah.
Those are being run almost every month. But so it's like the very next time we ran a bunch of O's, we ran the B mash bill, E mash bill, and then snuck a couple of the high rye and low rise in there.
Yeah. So actually, this is a really great question from Danny Lind. Have you tried any other recipes that were a no-go?
No, honestly, this is the first time we've done anything outside the 10 recipes.
Wow.
And a lot of that, it kind of goes back to, saying we've always been playing catch up. Like for the longest time, we just didn't have the capacity. And once the distillery expansion was finished in 2019, we should have started on it right then. But we saw some discussion. We were still, then really the bottleneck was probably human resource, our time, because we were still growing and adding people. So it's always been like, we've been playing catch up. It just seems like in the last 2 years, it's like, okay, we're in a good place where we can kind of be proactive and look at that extra capacity and do what's not just throw things at the wall, really attack it with an approach, looking at both, what we can do, the current appetite of the bourbon consumers.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a lot of room for, what we personally like, what I personally like. So it was just that amount of time for us to get everything together and actually move forward with this.
Well, I mean, that's really exciting. I think a lot of people probably would wanted to hear that, it was further along than it was, but it's something to look forward to. And I'm sure once Four Roses is done, kind of perfecting those recipes, it'll be well worth the wait once we get there. One thing I do want to talk about here is kind of I don't know if it's your biggest, I don't know if you consider it kind of your biggest impact on Four Roses, but it's the creation of Small Batch Select. Can we talk a little bit about the genesis of that? Because it's going to lead me into some other questions as far as some of the other bottles or the other offerings that you do create, and maybe some of the ones that you don't create. So let's talk about Small Batch Select. What was kind of the genesis of that, and why how did that start?
Okay. I guess the seeds of it really started probably like in 2012, 2013. When I was doing the production planning, I've always enjoyed F's. I know it might come up with my favorite recipe is, and I don't know if F's are my favorite recipe, but I always think they're, at certain times I'll find an F bottle that is my favorite that day or on that barrel pick.
Yeah.
But I've always really loved how unique it is and how just a little bit of it goes a long way in a blend. And we released Small Batch in 2006, and in the production schedule, I just started putting in a couple other Fs, OBSF, OESFs every year, thinking, someday maybe we'll do a small batch, maybe we won't. If we don't, big deal, because it's such a small volume, it can be absorbed into Four Roses bourbon. So that was kind of where how the F got involved, way before we'd even discuss or there was any discussion or any inkling of us doing another small batch. Then fast forward to probably late 2017, 2018, we started looking at, this was, the private barrel program was going. We understood that consumers were changing what they were looking for. They were looking for a lot of high proof bourbons that were non-chill filtered. And we realized you can get that with our small batch limited editions. You can get it with our private barrel selections, but those aren't easy to find.
Mm-hmm.
Yet that's what a lot of connoisseurs are really wanting. They're wanting variety and they're wanting those attributes, higher proof, non-filtered. So there's kind of a gap in our standard lineup. So first thing was we want to satisfy those that criteria, and we also wanted to sort of use the small batch platform, because that's really kind of what we're about. That's our uniqueness, that we blend behind the scenes to make something unique and make all of our products different. So that's kind of how it all started. And then the next step was just getting in the lab and doing a lot of test blends. And immediately, well, for two reasons: the F, we had some excess inventory. Part two of that was, and this was sort of the prototype, I think, or where I kind of made this connection that ended up being Small Batch Select, but working on Al's 50th, it uses that combination of the F and the V. Now they're much different, but something about the way those two came together in Al's 50th, that really, I didn't forget that. Like, I was like, oh, that's a nice trick. I'm going to keep that in my,
all right. So yeah, so noted. I got to say, when Small Batch Select was released, it was a while back. Well, not that long ago, but pretty long ago, I guess, in bourbon terms. And kind of what you said earlier, the current drinker wanted non-chill filtered. We wanted something a little bit of a higher proof, and you did kind of call out that gap. And I always thought when that released that the Four Roses was kind of ahead of the curve when it came to some distillers bringing some new stuff to the market, kind of, as the bourbon boom started really getting into the boom, bringing some to the market that was just had a little bit more heft to it, a little bit more of a texture to it, higher proof. And I think, I don't know, I think it was a smart addition to the core lineup.
Well, thanks. And something you said there, texture, like when I think of Small Batch Select, and it was sort of intentional when I was blending it, because if I'm doing a blend, whether it's, limited edition or whatever, for mouthfeel and finish, the V and the F, those are really the two that I reach for. And that's kind of, now there are other recipes sometimes, or barrels might have comparable mouthfeel or finishes, but in general, the Fs and the Vs really have a lot of viscosity, a lot of depth.
Yeah, and I'm drinking it right now, and I'm getting like this bright raspberry note on it, which I think the fruit flavors in Small Batch Select, I think, is what really drives it to people. Plus that spicy finish, it's definitely got that Four Roses signature rye spice on it on the back end as well.
Oh yeah, and this one there's more rye in this one than the standard small batch. Small batch is half B, half E. This is heavier on the B.
Yeah, V and F for the win. So is those. I'm just going to ask you: Are those kind of your favorite? I know. I mean, people have already been asking me in the chat. We kind of brought it up earlier, even before we got live. Was kind of your favorite recipes, and I know you get asked all the time, but I think you did call out a couple that you tend to. I'm not saying you have a favorite, but a couple that you lean towards.
Yeah, I do, and I can't believe I left this one out because it's also in Small Batch Select. Couldn't do this without a little bit of K.
That's right. I was waiting for you to say it. I was waiting for you to say the K. That's right.
Yeah, I really don't have consistently a favorite. And because it depends on the age, of course, barrel to barrel. Like if you said, what's your favorite at 8 years? OBSV. In most cases, not every barrel, not every batch, but most cases, I'll probably choose the OBSV. If you're talking, 14 to 16 years old, without a doubt, OESV or OESK.
Yeah, I'm right with you. K, V, and as of lately, the Fs and the Qs that I've tried recently have been really some of the distillery only picks that have come out. I'll actually be at the distillery next weekend. I forgot if I'll be there either Friday or Saturday, but I'll be there Friday or Saturday, and going into the beautiful new renovated gift shop. If none of you have been there, it's really beautiful. What they built there. So I'm hoping to pick up either an F or a Q when I'm there, if there's one in the gift shop.
I was up there today. I didn't look at the labels. We had quite a few out there, so hopefully they're still around when you show up.
Yeah. So I kind of want to open it up a little bit to some questions from the audience. I know a lot of people have been kind of clamoring to ask you a few questions. So if you guys have any questions here for Brent, please feel free to throw them in the chat. I did see one question earlier from Kenneth Rathburn, and it had to do when we were talking about the new recipes. Now, since your warehouses they're not that high, they're generally smaller. adding new recipes to the fold? Does this kind of make you guys have to, you know, build more warehouses, more rick houses to make room for these new recipes, or is it still too early for that?
At this point, we're not having to really take that into account for our warehouse plan. And our warehouse plan is pretty aggressive right now. We're building between 2 and 4 every year to accommodate the extra distillation capacity that the distillery now has. But when you look at like the amount we make in any given year and compared to the amount that we're making for these experimental batches, it's pretty insignificant.
Let's see. What's your opinion? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was on the bright side that if you look at our total case sales, our private barrel is pretty insignificant too. So it's still a good volume maybe for private selection. I don't want to
really
impression.
All right. Yeah, because whiskey knows how to question. Brett, can you talk about what the single barrel program is doing now?
Yeah, it's still super healthy. We've got more demand than we have barrels. And we have more demand than we have. Mandy has days. And, she has most days. She has 2 selections: one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And it's doing very well. We're just trying to keep up with that also.
Yeah. I need to, like I said, I need to get back on that list. I haven't. I'll never forget when one of our first picks from my group was actually a Four Roses pick, and we were. I was sitting down right over here at this computer, and I got the email from Mandy saying we got a pick for you, and I was like running around my house because I love Four Roses, and it was like my first Four Roses pick. But yeah, I haven't been able to do one since. It's just been tough because, like you said, the demand's really high. So I got to try to get myself back on that list. Here we go, Brent. This is actually a great question. I don't know if you've actually shared this or you can share this. What's your opinion on the importance of barrel entry proof? Does Four Roses have a select barrel entry proof that you go to, or do you kind of keep that undisclosed?
No, we across the board, we always go in at 120.
120. Okay.
And I think it's super important. It really does make a huge difference. Kind of extracts you get from the wood, whether it's going to be more tannic and woody, or some of the softer notes that are in the wood, and it's really personal preference. Kind of even the same thing with like the tiers. Like, not only do you get a difference in proof, but because you get a difference in proof in our tiers, you get a lot of different extracts from the top tiers, from the bottom tiers. And so, yeah, if you go in at 100 versus 120, it could be the same liquid. 10 years later, it's going to taste remarkably different. So I think
it's amazing how different the tiers, because again, the warehouses aren't super tall, but I mean, from tier 1 to tier 5, there's a big difference. I mean, when we did our pick and we went around the circle, every single favorite pick, the top 2 were from the higher tiers. And Manny was like, well, you guys definitely like higher proof and more punch. And we were like, yeah, it seems that way. So how much obviously it's a thing, but how much did you buy into that from the beginning as far as like what the tiers can do?
I never doubted that. Well, I've always known that it creates a lot of different, especially the older you go.
Yeah.
They're made that way by design so that it does minimize that difference. But you get out to 8, 9, especially 10, 11, 12 years, you really start to see the difference.
Yeah.
Now, what I am surprised about is how many people are all in for 6th tier. Don't get me wrong, I like some 6 tiers, but my personal preference is probably more like a 3rd or 4th tier.
I think the best picks that I've had have been either on 4 or 5. Yeah, those have been. I have a queue from tier 4 that blew me away at how rich and fruit forward it was. I was blown away how good that one was.
Yeah, I think again, I try not to speak in absolutes because I say that all. I'm more of a 105 to 110 proof person. But I did a couple picks with Mel Moments Club a couple weeks ago, and I would say by far the vast majority of my top picks were the high tiers.
Yeah.
So, it's barrel to barrel, and I'm thinking in general.
Real quick, Todd Ritter, thank you so much for the super chat, buddy. I'd like to thank Brent and Four Roses for donating a barrel pick experience for Bourbon on the Banks Festival. It brought in $20,000 for local charities. So, big thank you from Mr. Todd Ritter from the Frankfort Bourbon Society.
I'm actually join the winners of that auction for the barrel selection in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Let's see. Jay will drink. We just kind of cover this. I know a lot of people look for the higher tier proof single barrels. Does Brent have a preference for higher proof or lower proof single barrels? Even better, do you feel that is there a recipe that you feel works better at the lower tiers versus the higher tiers? Or do you feel like it's still just kind of random in how it ages? I'm just curious what you think.
It seems like it kind of affects all the recipes the same. The low tier, high tier. Now, maybe there's a little difference from the mash bill standpoint. But in general, I think it's sort of the same treatment. You get a little bit softer, more rounded notes at the bottom. You get a little more robust, strong flavor at the top.
Mm-hmm.
General. And I think you get, you could say that for OESO or OBSK, either one of those or anything in between.
All right. So one thing I did want to ask you, because it kind of is an amazing thing in today's time. And I don't know, maybe I pay more attention to it than other folks. And I have mentioned it before, but in a world, I'm going to kind of do the movie, the movie voice guy, in a world where every distillery seems to be pumping out limited release after limited release after limited release. You guys do not do that. You kind of, you hold back steady. You have your 10 recipes that you create. You have small batch select, single barrel. You have your Four Roses, yellow label, tan label, whatever you want to call it now. And then you have your LE that releases at the end of the year. You have single barrel picks that release all throughout the year as well from different clubs, from different stores. And that's really it. Is there a mindset behind like why you guys haven't done, I don't know, a toasted Four Roses, a double oaked Four Roses, a sherry Four Roses, a high age 10-year standard release Four Roses? Like, is this stuff that I'm mentioning not even in the works? Have people mentioned it, or are you guys just comfortable with where you're at capacity wise?
Well, we are comfortable with where we are, and we really like to. I think when we didn't have the capacity, we leaned on our uniqueness as our innovation because we really didn't have any capacity to do anything outside those 10 recipes. So we were kind of fortunate that we were producing as much as we could, and there was demand for all that. And then with what we had, we could make it exciting and creative.
Yeah.
But I certainly like a lot of experimentation, and we are hoping to do, a little bit more beyond just mash bills. So, but I can't imagine us ever as like a permanent product doing anything that's kind of outside the philosophy. Maybe some one-offs.
All right, I'm gonna show you something, Brett. So I have this little segment that I did called "Bottles I Wish Existed."
Okay.
So I kind of photoshopped this bottle, and I want to show it to you because I think this was one that people kind of like the idea of. This is the Four Roses, and I called it the Dark Rose. It's a double oaked Four Roses product. I thought this could be an absolute monster if it actually hit the market. I don't know. I was like calling it, what if they came out with a double oak product called the Dark Rose? I'm going to show this to Brent. Here's a close up of the label. That's what it would look like. Double oak Kentucky straight bourbon. Do whatever recipe you want. I leave it in your hands, Brent.
Well, the hard part's done. You've got the label, so
exactly. Call it the Dark Rose. I don't need royalties. I just want to invite to taste it first. That's all.
Yeah, that's really good. That's a good idea and a good label. I'll never say never. Like I've tried a lot of different barrel finished products, and there are a lot that I like and that interest me. Some things, just like all the innovation now, like there are so many new brands, and it's exciting because you've got more variety, more experimentation than ever in
Yeah.
the
Yep.
category. But we all know, I mean, there's a spectrum. You go from truly innovative to straight up gimmicky, and I think I'm pretty lenient. Like anything that's, and I guess I have a gauge inside. Just it feels right. Is that a gimmick or is that real innovation? And there's a lot of good, true innovation that's going on out there. And I think a lot of, trying different woods, different toasts, double oaks. I think those are all fascinating. And I say that a lot because I've had a lot of other brands that have done that. It's interesting and I think totally legitimate. So that's always a possibility for us to do some experiments like that. Even if it's just something for us internally to be like, okay, that's cool. That's how OESV tastes, aged in white pine.
Well, somebody here, Terrence McDermott said the white rose finished in white pork barrels. I mean, the options are endless.
Yeah,
you could do the purple rose with sherry or port. I mean, come on, there's a whole lineup you could do maybe here. It would be incredible. Actually, yeah. Drinks with Jeff has a great question. If you're going into the barrel 120, how are some single barrel strengths coming in significantly below that? For example, single barrel strength that's at 104, 112 proof. I mean, honestly, that's probably just low tier evaporation, cool versus heat. It's probably like what you normally see with single barrels.
Yeah, that's it. Once you start getting out, the highest we've seen, we've released were some 6 tiers for Father's Day last year. So we sometimes do little one-offs that are a little different that are outside we did a Father's Day private barrel release. There's some 16-year-old 6-tier barrels. Some of those were coming off just under 140. And I guarantee we didn't have any low tiers of those barrels, but if we had some of those from the same batch, all put in at 120 on the first tier, they could very easily have been 90 proof. So you go out long enough, that's much that affects. And that's kind of what I was getting at earlier is entry proof drives, gets different extracts from the wood. So when you start, 6 tiers up at 140 and a first tier, it's maybe 20 years old, is down 85 proof. Not only are they going to be super different because the alcohol, the gap in alcohol percentage is so high, but through all those, minutes and hours and days and months and years of aging at those different proofs, they're going to become totally different whiskeys because of how it's almost like they were both put in the barrels at different strengths from 10 years on, because at 10 years, those will probably be at 130. Those down there will be at 105. Yeah.
Kevin Browering is saying 98 is the lowest he believes. I think it was an OESO. Yeah. Crazy. I think it's fascinating to me, and that's the difference with those Four Roses rick houses. How much difference you can get from tier 1 to tier 6. Not being super high rick houses. It's kind of just like this magical thing that you find at Four Roses. It's really cool how it happens. Really cool question here. Where did it go? I think. Oh, yeah, here we go. From Greg McDonald. This year's Father's Day bottles were in the mid to upper 130s. Has a Hazmat barrel proof of Four Roses ever come out? Or just have you come across one in the rick houses?
Yes. And we don't have many of these, and I don't know if we have any currently in inventory. But like 6 tiers that are like 20 or 20 years plus. I have seen a couple that have been north of 140.
So they'll stay over that 140 even at 20 years old. That's incredible.
Yeah, they'll keep climbing.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, less humidity, more heat. The smaller water molecules will exit and it'll just keep concentrating. That alcohol will just continue to rise. It's really just more water leaves, so it becomes higher proof.
I understand the science of it, but I'm more fascinated with that age and staying Hazmat, which is incredible to me.
Yeah. And getting out at that age, it's always, and we've been dealing with a lot more old stuff than we did, just a few years back, of incorporating it more into the LEs to kind of give it some unique character. We've been doing some more older single barrel releases, like with for some charity auctions, like the flood relief, the tornado relief.
Yeah, absolutely.
For the VC, we did some 20-year-old single barrels. That's oldest we've done as a straight single barrel. So I've had the opportunity to really work and learn more about some of these older barrels that we historically have not had a whole lot of or really used for much. And it's super interesting. You get
yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say I just had another question coming here. Brent, is there a way to chemically analyze the bourbon, determine characteristics, tasting notes based on the compounds present? Great question from Austin Lavoie.
Yeah, that's a question I have too, because we can, just trying to find out if AI is going to replace me eventually. Because we can totally analyze, like we know, that's actually how I got hired. I had a lot of experience running a GC mass spec, which is a really sensitive analytical instrument that's pretty common across the board, whether it's forensics or food science or fragrance science or distilling or brewing. We can just take distillate or get headspace samples from the beer or match it or whatever, and we can basically inject a small sample into this instrument. And if we have it set up just right, and we kind of have to dial it in to know what we're looking for, whether it's more heavy barrel notes or the lighter, like higher alcohols, or we have a really good way of seeing everything that is in, whatever sample it is we're analyzing, if anything that's volatile. So the information's there. It's just, I don't think the technology is there yet to tell you if it's good. So it still takes a human nose. We know like what gives a banana flavor, what gives a floral note, what gives apple, caramel, vanilla, all like that's all. You can Google all that, and that's well studied and understood. But fortunately, it takes a human nose. Still could be a little subjective.
Yeah, I don't want AI. I don't want AI telling me what's in my bourbon. I rather have guys like you tell me, honestly. So
tell all your friends. Yeah.
So here's a great question. When will the new standard 100 proof single barrels with the different recipes be released? And this was something that just came across a few weeks ago. I think this is an absolute great idea. There they are.
Nice.
Yeah. New 100 proof of the different recipes that will be hitting the shelves. Now, when I read the press release, Brent, I kind of read that you're starting off obviously with 3 specific recipes, but the idea is to kind of rotate these out each year. Was that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're trying to stagger it so that each year it's 3 different ones, and each year is interesting in some way, so that it's not like in a given year, you've got the basic, you'll always be able to get the OBSV. So it's not like OBSV, OESV, OBSK, and OESK, which would be fantastic. Obviously, I'm saying that's a bad example because that's kind of probably my dream. But we try to keep it, spread it out, like an F, a Q, a K, an O. And I think we're starting off on the perfect combination because it's OBSF, OESO, and OESV. It really does, I think, cover the whole range. Yeah, every year we're going to rotate 3 new ones.
So every year we'll see different recipes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I like that idea. And I got to ask, because I thought it was actually a great idea for you guys to release the tasting kit, where you had all the different recipes at 100 proof that people could try to kind of figure out what they like the best. I thought it was really great that they were all proof to the same level. Everybody can kind of try to find those nuances in the different recipes that they like. And, obviously every palate is different. So people will be able to pick up different things within those recipes and figure out what they like. Was that kind of a, case study for this release and kind of releasing them? Because I think that went really well. I mean, they flew off the shelf, and I know a bunch of people that did videos and did live streams and podcasts just around that Four Roses kit that came out.
Yeah, actually, when we did the Taste of 10, the whole single barrel collection, that wasn't even on the radar.
Wow. Okay.
A lot of that, this was, I can't even really pinpoint where that started, but I know we've been having requests from consumers to do something like that for a long time.
Yeah,
It was almost like the buzz had been around for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden one day we're like, hey, why don't we do 50 milliliter bottles with all 10 recipes? And it seemed so obvious.
I'm just saying, Brent, when those new recipes hit, you should release that first with the new recipes and the 10 new recipes, and just get people all like riled up for them. And this way, when the new single barrels drop, people will know exactly what they want. It might be a little crazy, but that could happen.
Yeah. I'm super excited about it's a little bit the same. There's some similarities in the reasoning behind that to the reasons I explained behind the small batch select.
Yeah.
Private barrels, but honestly, and I talk to people all the time. I get emails and like, how do I find this? They just learn about it, but they might live, somewhere that's a little bit off the beaten path, and their retailers aren't going to get them. They're not in charity groups, but this is going to be something that's more accessible for people to go out and grab an individual recipe. So I'm excited about that.
All right, so let's get into the LEs here, because this is something that absolutely fascinates me, and that's blending. As someone that tinkers with blending a lot, these LEs are, I don't know about you, but I always say they're kind of underrated. Each year, because they come out around the same time as BTAC and Birthday Bourbon and all these other big releases that come out around the fall time. But the Four Roses limited edition is a release that I never like to miss. I always try to get a bottle because they're always unique. They're different each year. I could see talking to you tonight when you're talking about the K and the V and how much you enjoy those, how now I could see that why you see those recipes a lot in your LEs. I want to know, like, what is your mindset going into blending an LE? Is it, and I could tell you, I have this worded, I actually wrote this out because I wanted to word this right. With the types of ages you are blending with, what's your blending process like? Are there goals you set, flavor profiles you want to create, or do you let the barrels drive those decisions?
It's sort of in the middle of all of that. I usually go in with a plan, and really the one thing I try to do, and it's really easy because it's always different barrels, different batches, but I always want to make sure that there's something different about it from, say, last year's or 3 years ago, or especially recent history, but it's always going to be different, again, because it's different batches. So even if I go in with when I start looking at the barrels and the batches, start formulating ideas, usually once the blends start to come together, they kind of take me in a direction that maybe I didn't even imagine. And sometimes you add 2 and 2, it's straight up 4, but a lot of times it comes out some different number that you'd never tasted before.
Okay.
And sometimes that was kind of like the Al's 50th with the V and the F, the way they came together. That flavor that they combine really isn't in the F, and it's really not in the V, but you bring them together. So a lot of times the sum is greater than the parts. And so, and for that reason, there's a lot of exploratory blending. Like I keep doing test blends because it's fun and it's interesting, until there's that deadline where they're like, we need tasting notes. We got to get this off for COLA approval and printing. But I could play around with these blends all year long, because one thing, we got 10 recipes, a lot of variety there. Then you start going out and we're looking at 10 recipes, and then I'm looking at the dimension of tiers too. I take that into consideration for limited editions. Not to
mention the ages. I mean, when you have 20-something-year-old whiskey that you're blending with, what are you starting out with as your base? Because you have some really high age. I mean, you're talking about 14, 16, 20-year-old, 18-year-old. I mean, where do you even begin?
Good question. Well, I actually have a system, right or wrong. Like, I never start with the old stuff.
And
I never start with like the Q's or F's or O's. I usually first start by trying to build a good base.
Okay.
And there are times where I get that base complete, like 2017, I think it was. like that was the base. It was 3 recipes, but it was like the 3rd test blend. And I'll start with the base, usually the V's and K's. Not always. Like last year's, I actually started out with an F base, like an F and a V base.
Mm-hmm.
But, again, kind of like small batch select, but that was
exactly.
Particular F batch was not as effy as most. It was just more mellow and just easy to drink. It seemed like a good.
I'm gonna use that adjective the rest of my life. It's not as effy. I'm just gonna keep saying it.
Yeah. only moderately effy.
It's moderately effy. Oh man, I love it. I'm actually sipping on the 2021, which was, I think that year, this was my bourbon of the year. This was absolutely ridiculous, this blend.
I just had that for the first time in quite a while. 2 weeks ago. But I'll start with that. I'll try to build, a few different bases, and the base might end up being 50 to 70% of the total blend, and then work on a couple of those, and then trying to pepper in some of the older stuff, or some of the what I kind of consider the sort of more like the F's or the Q's, the O's, the ones where it just takes a little bit to really go a long way in the blend, start to flavor up the base. And sometimes it's like, okay, that doesn't play well with the base. It doesn't enhance. It doesn't create anything interesting or unique. And then sometimes like, wow, I didn't see that coming.
Because Kenneth Rathburn here, Kenneth is asking, when are we going to get an LE small batch with more majority F and or O, especially O? It seems like K and V always dominate the blends, and I'd love to see some serious curveballs. Now, is it just kind of a matter of, like you said, like where the barrels are and what you feel like is working best as the base, or do those generally not work as a base when you add to the blend you're working on?
It is. I try some of those, and like the 2024, that has a lot of F in it.
Mm-hmm.
The Al's 50th has F. 2014 has F, and I'm probably missing another one in there more recently that has F. And then I know 2016 has a lot of O. But I get your point just by me saying this, and they're clearly the exceptions.
Exactly.
I'm trying to defend myself, and I'm just proving your point.
Exactly. Yeah. Basically. Yeah. I'm sorry. I kind of set you up for that.
We used it once, and I can remember exactly the year and the percentage. But no, I do try to incorporate those quite a bit. Sometimes it works out. I think like last year, it was F, and there was. One of these blends made it very close to the end. Instead of the 20-year-old batch that went in there, I was putting some Q in, and it was working out. It didn't work out quite as well as that older stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I sound really nerdy when I talk about this. Like it was dangerous. I was mixing F's and Q's, but it was really kind of working. But like when I approach it, like I would never go into a blend like, okay, let's take a little bit of Q and O and make that as a base.
Yeah.
I think I occasionally I'll do it just for learning and for fun, but it always is a little too much or just out of balance, or it's never quite as, it doesn't ever fit that system of me building, which is really the only efficient way that I can do it. But even when I start out that way with my system, how to start, sometimes all bets are off, within like 2 generations of test blends. And then it's just, again, the batches take me somewhere different. And by the end, I'm like, I don't know how I got here, but this is,
but it works. I'm a big fan of the 2024 edition that you brought out. It's very, it's fruit forward. It's spicy. I think it's very rye driven to me, which I really enjoy about it.
Thank you. I saw your YouTube review of it too, so thank you.
Oh, cool. Yeah, glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, I'm always a big fan of these every year. I always like I said, I always look for these. I will say Sparty on Bourbon says he just landed a 2013 125th anniversary, and I will say that is one of the best LEs that's come out. It's a really interesting one too, because the 125th anniversary, the nose is completely different than the palate. And I find that fascinating when you can nose a bourbon and you're getting all these different flavors, and then you drink it expecting those flavors. It completely flips it on its head. It's so good. It's such a great blend.
Yeah, that's one of my all-time favorites too. I love
Yep.
the 125th.
24 LE is fabulous. Grab the backup. If we pull them out together, okay. Given how much variation you can get from the ages and the tiers, would a single barrel recipe blend make sense? That's a great question, Gary.
I'm not sure if under this.
So, given how much variation you can get from the ages and the tiers, would a single recipe blend make sense?
Recipe blend, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would. And I thought about doing something, whether it would be a release. I guess it really couldn't be unless it was like some one-off in the visitor center. We don't really have a vehicle to do something that small of volume.
Yeah,
but it would be super interesting. And I do see how that works. Actually, I witnessed this week, and I do it every time we're doing the limited editions because, and I'm getting back on the limited edition and getting in the weeds here.
Well, how far out are you blending the limited edition?
I just really started the last couple of weeks.
Okay. Oh, so you're right in the midst of beginning for 2025.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Awesome.
I start kind of early, and bear with me here because this is really kind of in the weeds. But you know, I do consider tier in the final blends. But so say I've got a batch of 60 or say 100 barrels of OESV. It's 12-year-old OESV. I really think it's a fantastic base, and it's going to be used. I'm going to try it, start at 25, 30, 40%, whatever.
Okay.
I know that most likely I'm going to be using all 6 tiers when it's dumped. So for the test blends, if I make that assumption, I will take sample barrels or samples of the barrels from 1st through 6th tier, taste those individually, and they're way different. And then I'll blend them, and that will be the representative sample from those barrels for the test blends. So if it's another, batch that only has 1st and 2nd tiers, I might just take, it'll just be a composite of those two. Or if it's if it's a batch that I know that the 6th tier barrels I want to use those and not the 1st, I'll just use those. So I try to make, and it's always a judgment call, what I represent so just this week I took barrels that were so different because again, they're for 12 or 14 years old from the 6th tier to the 1st tier, and you bring them together and it's kind of one of those deals. The sum is better than the sum is better than the individual parts of that. So it would be cool to do that sometime. And I'm glad to hear you say that because I've had those flitting thoughts about, that's cool. I wonder if, how.
Yeah. I mean, I listen, I think like we kind of brought up, we talked about this earlier. You guys don't do a lot of these special releases. You kind of stay in your lane with the single barrels. I think anything like that, I think people would go crazy for it, to be honest, because it's just not, you're not inundating us with so many different releases that if you took the time to work on something that you really felt passionate about, whether it be a blend of a couple different, of one recipe from different tiers, and you kind of perfected that blend, OESK, select blend, whatever you want to call it. I mean, people, I think, would really go crazy for that, to be honest, especially if you're blending it and you have kind of the, you have a great age statement on it, or at least an age statement from like, an 8-year to 12-year whiskey in the blend, that would go crazy.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And I'm glad that was a question because I think I always try to guess, let me rephrase that. I always hope that my palate matches what consumers like because a lot of times I'm flying blind. It's like, I'm not going to go out to a focus group so a lot of times I'm just like, I like it. That's the criteria. And
well, that actually gives us that. Yeah, that brings me into another question that somebody had put in the chat. So you're working behind the scenes. You just started the blend. What do you have a panel of people that you trust at Four Roses that taste this with you to kind of give you the green light or say you get this, get that, different palettes that you work with?
There's one other guy in the lab that I work with,
and
he's got a great palate. He's been with us for 4 years now. So he works with me every day on the blending, barrel selections. So it's basically a team of two of us.
Okay.
But yeah, and usually like once I get close to the final blends, out of excitement, we'll have other folks from operations or even marketing in and, get their opinions and, their feedback on the different test blends. But it's not like we don't have like a formal gate or a focus group or anyone that says green light. It's just when I feel like it's ready and I'm happy with it. And again, it's when I when I like it and I'm happy and I'm like, this is as good as it's going to get with,
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't really think you have to think too hard on it, Brent, to be honest. And honestly, I'm not just like kissing your ass here because you're on the show, but to be honest, like your LEs to me are some of the most beautifully blended whiskeys I've had in the last several years. There are a lot of blends that come out, and I feel like there are some really great blenders, but I feel like what you do with the LEs every single year, they're different, they're unique, they have high age to them. And they work every year. Are they different? Yeah. Well, some people like some years versus other years. Yes, but that's the point. But I feel like you have like your path where if you wanted to do something like that, do something different where you kind of focus on one recipe and start blending some different tiers and ages together, you would totally crush that. Absolutely.
I appreciate that. And I hope to do more of that. And I hope to, with the 10 new recipes, just expand the possibilities even further because I love blending. Again, doing this limited edition, doing the small batch select, it's some of the most fun I have, or it is the most fun I have in any given year.
Yeah, I think any mix of like a super high proof, high tier OESK with a low tier, kind of a lower proof OESK. I mean, that stuff's kind of fascinating. And I think it's because you've kind of built this whole thing where Four Roses doesn't put out a lot of crazy LE releases and finishes and all this stuff. So if you put that out there, and I think people would really get excited about it, to be honest. So I would think on something like that. I'm not saying you have to, do it tomorrow, but I would definitely think on it.
Well,
yeah. Talking Beavers, he's calling out. He double dog dares you. I'm just saying. Oh man, that's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah. He double dogs dares you to do it because I think a lot of people would absolutely love that. We'll kind of wind down a couple questions here as we finish up here. I know you've been on for an hour and a half, and I want to make sure I'm doing right by your time. But I always like to ask a few like fun questions here at the end of the interview. To Master Distillers just to kind of open things up a little bit. So let's talk about what music do you listen to? What do you like to listen to?
Oh, I guess I'm kind of lame. Like I'm the kind of guy that would play a cassette tape until it wouldn't even play anymore.
like one album, you just stick with it the whole time.
I remember like when I was in high school, it was all this like kind of dad rock stuff, like stuff that even then as a high schooler was kind of lame. Looking back, it's like, wow, man, Guns N' Roses was pretty awesome. I should have been rocking to them. I was like listening to Bob Dylan and the Beatles. And
hey, there's nothing wrong with Dylan or the Beatles. I'll tell you that.
No, I still love them. I still love them.
Yeah.
But I still love all that classic stuff. Like some old classic country. I like a lot of the good, nice. A lot of the rock from the 90s.
Do you listen to music while you're blending? Do you incorporate that into some of what you do, or do you like a silent space when you're blending?
It's more of a silent space, but only because we don't have music I love music, like I absolutely love it,
dude. You got to get some speakers in there because who knows, you might make the best blend ever created if you pump some music in there.
It can't hurt.
All right, next question. Music. I'm sorry, not music. Cocktail. What's your go-to cocktail if you're in the mood?
Oh man, I'm so simple. Fortunately, the only one that I can make is the one that's my kind of go-to. Old fashioned all the way.
Old fashioned. Okay. All right. What about favorite if you had, I don't know, movie genre, movie, what kind of is your favorite movie? Are you a history buff, comedy? What do you lean towards when you're looking at movies?
Uh, yeah, I like period piece movies quite a bit when they're done right.
Yeah. Yep.
Probably, I hate to say it, I don't like comedies because there's so many comedies I love, but dramas maybe. I'm kind of frustrated. Like I'm not really all that happy with movies these days. And there are a couple that come out. Like, what goods come out in the last? Oppenheimer maybe, or
Oppenheimer was one of my favorite movies. I think I've watched that movie already about 5 or 6 times. It's just one of those fascinating movies to me. And also Chris Nolan is probably one of my favorite directors. Just everything he films, it's like real. It's you feel like you're there. The way he directs, it's just, I don't know, it speaks to me for some reason. I love it.
So good. And my son's now old enough to watch Quentin Tarantino, so I've gotten him up to date on some of those. Revisiting some of those, I forgot how good those are. It's just good stories. I like the good story, the good acting.
Favorite Four Roses release or favorite Four Roses. All right, so this could be either something that's released, something that hasn't released. What has been the most impressive thing you've ever tasted to come out of Four Roses, whether it be a single barrel, something resting in the warehouse, a 23-year-old, a 25-year-old barrel, a blend that you did? What has been your favorite expression over the course of time that you've been at Four Roses?
That's tough. If you would give me 3, I would go.
I'll give you 3 because I'm really interested to see what you say. Yep.
I'll probably go that 125th. That's up there.
Dude, that 125th is unbelievably good.
Yeah, love it.
Yep.
That and then probably the 2015, 2019. Those two are kind of neck and neck. Probably a little behind the 125th. But those are the top 3 that, like, if I could, take a case of each, and that's all I had to drink on for like the next year. Those would be the 3 I'd pick.
Oh my God. Seriously, Ed Williams, you're going to ask this? Brent, do you like beans or no beans in your chili?
I'm all beans, and for any Cincinnati folks out there, all my Cincinnati chili is 5-way all the way.
Fucking Beaver says, what bottle should we buy at the gift shop at the moment? 2 options. I think you had said there was a couple of good recipes available right now.
Yeah, and there might even still be some picks from the Mel Moments Club picks.
Oh, okay, that'd be cool. Yeah, I hope those are still there when I get there next week. That'll be cool.
And I know I really like the OBSK, OESV. They were all good.
Yeah,
it was amazing. We did the first pick we did. Let's see how many people were. 7, 8 people in there.
Yeah.
10 barrels, all blind, and the top 5 barrels, everyone voted. Everyone's votes were tallied on the wall. You know how Mandy does.
Yep.
There were maybe 3 votes outside those 5 core. Like, I've never seen a barrel pick be so aligned with the group. It was amazing.
That's amazing.
Second day was pretty good too. But the first day, I've never seen anything like it. Like, everyone had the exact, for the most part, the same top picks.
Great question from Ben Singer here. What other company or current master distiller do you admire and why?
Oh, great question. I guess the easy and obvious and true answer, I could name a lot, but Jimmy Russell.
Yeah.
Pops the top of my head automatically. I mean, he's Jimmy. I mean, it's just amazing what he's done. He was, and there are a lot of guys that were doing bourbon when bourbon wasn't cool.
Yep.
He was doing bourbon back in the days when, how long's he been doing it now? 80 years?
He just did his 70th anniversary bottle that released. 70,
yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, yeah, that's amazing for him to be doing it that well and with that much personality. Such a great product for that long. So I think that's
actually, yeah, this is a good question too. Matt Starr, have you tried a brand called K. Luke yet with Jonathan Maisano?
No, I know Jonathan, but I haven't tried. I wasn't aware of that.
He's a huge Four Roses fan, and I feel like he blends like you blend. Like he loves Four Roses, and I feel like that's his blueprint for the whiskeys that he blends, and he does an incredible job. So, Jonathan Maison, if you're watching,
Hey, Jonathan,
you should send some stuff. You should send some stuff to Brent so he could taste how good your whiskeys are. So, so real quick, this is something I always ask every master distiller comes on. It's just kind of a fun thing that comes up. Your ultimate peanut butter and jelly sandwich. How would Brent Elliott create? What is your favorite? Is it simple? Is it grape? Is it peanut butter? Crunchy, creamy type of bread? Give it to me. What is it?
Mine's pretty simple. When I do like honey oat bread, and I eat a lot of peanut butter sandwiches. There are days like I know if I'm going to be busy at work and I'm out the door fast, I've got jars of peanut butter in my office.
Okay.
Like honey oat bread, peanut butter, and honey.
So honey oat bread, creamy peanut butter,
Creamy, yeah,
and honey.
and honey.
All right, so no jelly.
I do appreciate jelly. It's kind of like those tapes I would wear out till they wouldn't play anymore.
Yeah,
I just don't deviate. It's like, and really, if I'm eating a peanut butter sandwich, it's peanut butter and jelly sandwich or honey sandwich. It's a functional lunch.
Oh,
So
all right.
I'm not thinking too much about it. But now that you're saying, it's like, yeah, man, I should mix up some jelly. I do like jelly. If I'm doing jelly, I'm going to do grape.
Now we're getting in the weeds. Kevlar wants to know what brand of peanut butter. Do you have a select brand?
I think at work I have two different ones sitting there. So my wife's just shopping. I think I have Peter Pan and Jif maybe right now.
All right. So last question for you before I let you go. And everybody that's in the chat here, stay on. As soon as we let Brent go, I'm going to stay on because I think I'm going to do a little bit of a blind tasting here with some of these Four Roses LEs. But I do want to ask you, as far as Four Roses goes and what you see in the future, where do you see Four Roses in 5 years? This might be kind of a three-tiered question here.
Okay.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see Four Roses in 5 years? And last part of that, when kind of all is said and done, where do you see your legacy at Four Roses? Where do you, when you're talked about amongst the greats, which I think you will be, how do you, what does that look like for you?
I guess I'll work backwards on that. I guess my legacy, I think from the get-go, I've always been comfortable with what I've been tasked with. Because like when I took over from Jim,
Mm-hmm.
there was not any opportunity for me to do anything crazy, which was great because I didn't want to do anything crazy. It's like, I felt like I was just sort of the steward for the brand. It got to this certain point, after 100 and some odd years, by all, refining and different people and evolution of the brand. And so it's like, okay, it's almost a delicate thing. It's perfect where it is now. So for the first, so many years, and I've been in this role now almost 10 years, but for the first 5-6 years, like I just this is delicate. I've got to just maintain this. And this is in light of the expansion and all the changes.
Yeah.
So I was always worried about, which I was happy about, because people asked what my legacy. I'm like, I just want to maintain. I don't need anything, Yeah,
I mean, you're a big part of that expansion, though. I mean, you may not see it that way, but kind of taking Four Roses into kind of the bourbon boom generation. I mean, that's no small feat. I mean, it's a huge whiskey brand.
Yeah, and it's amazing that we're where we are now, because
it
wasn't when I started.
Mm-hmm.
And I can just look around the building and look at all the people that I've worked with, and it's individuals that did that. I mean, you can say, well, yeah, but the liquid's good. Well, the liquid's good for a reason. It's the packaging's beautiful. Yeah, it seems like it's been there forever, but that I know the people that did that. Like, it was all built basically from nothing to where it is now.
Yeah.
So, and I do, that's a sense of responsibility. I feel it's like, okay, well, don't screw this up. But I love the brand. I love the company. I love the people. So I think it's just just to maintain that. And of course, I think we can't just keep doing this, and we've got to expand and try new things. And I think that's part of, and now that I feel like expansion's, behind us, we've really weathered the bourbon boom. We're doing great. We're still bringing new consumers. I think now is the time to try new things, like the new mash bills and beyond, and so whether any of that pans out or if it changes, at least we'll evolve and we'll continue to maintain the same quality, bring more people into the brand, more brand recognition, to share the love with more people. So I think that's where I hope we're heading, and I hope that's my legacy, is just to help push us along, in the next 5, 10, and however many years.
Well, Brent, I think you have a lot of faithful viewers here tonight, including myself, that really appreciate what you do and what the entire team at Four Roses does. You guys make incredible whiskey, and we cannot wait to see what these 2 new mash bills bring to the table. What any experimentations you guys do in the near future, and obviously, if you decide to do this, single recipe blend experiment, we cannot wait to see what happens with that. But honestly, for me, this was kind of a dream come true. I've been wanting to talk to you for so long and go through your process and how you work. And I've always heard from many people that Brent's a really easy interview. He's a really down to earth person, and it's extremely true. And I just want to thank you for coming on and talking with all of us tonight. This was awesome. So,
well, I really appreciate it. And thanks to all of you out there for tuning in. I hope we covered everything everyone wanted to hear. If not, I'm sure I'll be on again sometime. So
yeah, and Brent, if I'm there next week, I'll knock on the door, and if you're around, I'll try to say hi. But
are you gonna be there Friday?
Either Friday or Saturday, I'll be there next week. What day? Yeah, well, we could talk offline, but I'll
Friday,
I'll email you, and maybe we can run into each other. But again, thank you so much for coming on, man. This was an absolute pleasure. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
All right. Take care, man. Cheers. All right. Brent Elliott. In the interview today, guys, I mean, that was I'm kind of on cloud 9 right now. That was pretty incredible. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun. That's one of those interviews that I've been trying to make happen for a couple months. And I do want to thank Kelsey Dime. Not sure if he's in the chat. He kind of made that connection. Also, Kim Schwartz kind of made that connection as well. So thank you guys so much for helping out with that and getting Brent on the channel. That was a highly informative interview. Not to mention, we got to learn about. I gotta say, I'm a little disappointed that the mash bills aren't further along. Did anybody else get that? Anybody else kind of like wish that those mash bills, the new mash bills that were announced, were a little bit further along than they were? He's like, yeah, when we announced that, we just kind of put them right in the barrels. I'm like, oh, dude. I'm like, oh, I feel like they wouldn't have announced them unless they had them at least in there at least 3 or 4 years. But it looks like it won't be like 5 or 6 years till we taste that stuff. Damn. So that kind of sucks. Hey, what's up, Kelsey? Thanks so much. Fucking Beaver says, man, I know. I was like, damn, we're not going to taste that shit sooner. Come on, man. Did anybody notice my moose cup? I got the old moose cup out for the holidays. So I'm going to have some water. So we're going to have a little fun here while we have for the last, 10, 20 minutes of the stream. So I'm going to pour some Four Roses 2021 LE. Then I'm going to pour some 2024 LE. And what other ones do I have back there? I have 2 more. So we're going to do a kind of a fatal 4-way here. Let me grab these 2. Let me move that because that's going to fall. And let me grab this one right here. All right. So I'm going to have to keep them in order here, but let me see if I could keep them in kind of a specific order here so I can kind of remember this. This is the 2022. So we have 21, I'll put 22 here. And put them in some sort of order. Okay. So that's 22. This is 24. And then let me pour the 23, which was the 135th anniversary. One of my favorites. And I'm just curious to see which one is my favorite of the last 4 years. Let's go with it. All right. So I got 4 of these all poured out. I told you guys I do not miss the Four Roses LEs. When they come out each and every year, I grab them. So Nick Foles says, I'm not huge on higher rye bourbon, so the 10% recipe will be up my alley in 9 years for sure. In 9 years. Yes, in 9 years. Blennigeddon back on next week. Yes, Blennigeddon will be back next week. Round 2 of Blennigeddon will happen next week, so it'll be a lot of fun. I'll also be doing that night. I got this blind sample kit that I'll be tasting through that was sent to me. I just kind of want to go through the experience with you guys and see if it's maybe worth you guys trying that one out. So I'll do that. And then after that, we'll get into the whole, we'll get into Blennigeddon round 2. Another new judge coming to the fold next week. So it'll be great. Look at JC having a 4 with 4 roses. His wallet is too small for his hundreds, and his diamond shoes are too tight. I'm not diamond shoes, man. That's ridiculous. All right, let's get into this one. So this is the 21, which was, I think in that year was my bourbon of the year. I'm trying to remember back. I don't know if it was 2020, 2021. One of those years was my bourbon of the year. JG Kicks. What do I have on tonight? Oh, I have the Jordan 4 Ama Menieres tonight. I think I've worn these before on the channel, but yeah, they're kind of like a pale purple maroon. I have some cream laces on there. Kind of an OG colorway. Well, no, sorry, these are not an OG colorway. This is a collab, I should say. This is a collab with Ama Meniere. So yeah, this is I've been trying to Jordan 4s, you got to break in a bit. They're a little bit they start off pretty stiff. You got to break these suckers in before they start getting more comfortable. So, all right. Let's go with the nose first. Josh Fritz shook for a judge. Maybe. We'll see. Honest question. How is the Four Roses small batch compared to like Knob 9 and Wild Turkey 101? I haven't had it. Whiskey Habit asks. Great question. Four Roses, I will say, it's a different animal than your Knob Creeks, than your Buffalo Traces, than your Heaven Hills. That rye spice that's in those blends, there's a different, it just gives you a different sense of spice. For some people, it's almost too rye forward, and some people kind of keep Four Roses at arm's length for that reason. But I think when you start combining some of the blends like Brent Elliott does so beautifully, it brings out different flavors in others, and it can kind of react with the other flavors in the other recipes and just brings out like the best in both worlds. So hearing him talk about how he does the LEs, that was the one question I want to ask him. That was fascinating to me. So yeah, Josh Fritz, I would go select over small batch. Small batch is very bright. It's probably more floral than anything, but small batch select is what's going to give you the rye, the raspberry. It's kind of like that really nice blend of rye spice, fruit forwardness, and again, the viscosity that we talked about. Small batch select for me, in some ways, I like better than the 100 proof single barrel offerings. Now, private select barrels will always be my favorite for, as long as they keep coming out with them. So, all right. So 2021 on the nose, beautiful. 2022, way more rye forward. Again, I get a little bit of there's like a bright, oh man, almost like a bright apricot note on this one, which is interesting. Kind of an apricot peach, like back and forth. Jason, I want an old fashioned with Four Roses now. Richie Z, make it. Go make it, man. Mojo says he's in the gym. Have one for me, gents. Stone fruit. Yeah, that's a great way to put it, Mojo. Stone fruit. Yeah, even on the palate, 2022 brings a lot of stone fruit to the palate, a lot of spice, um, little kick of a strawberry, great baking spice in the back end, almost leads you in to a little bit of a cigar tobacco type note on the back end. It just kind of the finish on the 22 is really really nice. All right, let's get into the 135th, which this thing was ridiculous when it came out. Oh, take care, man. Thanks for chiming in, Kevlar. Appreciate you being here, man. This is like the Hershey Chocolate Factory ride that makes you want a Hershey bar so bad you steal it. Now we all want Four Roses. Exactly. Every time someone says hit the like, I sling it to the tune of Metallica's Hit the Lights. There you go. Hey, what's up, Brooks Reed? Hey, Jason, just tuning in. We'll catch up. But did you talk about skipping the line to get a single barrel pick? Yeah, I put it out there, but I don't think that's going to help me much. I'm gonna have to email Mandy and see if I can get on the list for 2025 for another Four Roses, man. That pick is one of the best. It's one of the best experience picking barrels you're gonna have is that Four Roses. I mean, you try 10 samples. It's 10 freaking recipes. You know, so I don't know. It's crazy. Let's talk about something else that hit the news. Is anybody here surprised? Is anybody here surprised that Stoli, or I should say Kentucky Owl, announced bankruptcy? Is anybody surprised? Not surprised at all. When that news broke, I was like, okay, that was gonna happen. Stoli completely killed that brand, unfortunately. And I hate to say it because Old Carter, Dixon Dedman did their work to build it back up, make it more prominent again. And then as soon as Stoli got their hands on it, they absolutely killed it. It just, dude, it sucks. System Trend saying Whistle Pig is next. I got to say, if Whistle Pig doesn't kind of help out, so obviously people chase the Boss Hog, whether you love it or hate it. There are people that buy that bottle, that collect it. They kind of keep the vertical going, and I get that part of it. But dude, the 15-year, the prices on the Whistle Pig are rough. I get asked every single year to do a Whistle Pig single barrel selection. And we're like, no, our group's not going to buy it. Sorry. They're not going to buy $150, 12-year expression. It's not going to happen. So I don't know if it's their pricing model that has to change. From what I've heard, their single barrel experience is second to none. It is beautiful. The grounds, they'll put you up overnight if you want. You stay in the Whistle Pig Hotel. It's unbelievable. But the prices, the whiskey itself, while some of it is good, I think the price is tough on that one. So yeah. Boss Hog sits on the shelf in my area of Georgia. No one wants it down here. Yeah, I think there's specific collectors that grab it. So yeah. I heard Whistle Pig is in some hot water over in North New York Rick House. Oh, I haven't heard that yet. But come on, let's be honest here. Stoli completely ruined Kentucky Owl. As soon as they got their hands on it, they started putting out mediocre bourbons with finishes on them for $300, $400, and $500. It's not what you should have done. I mean, listen, you had Confiscated, right? Kentucky Owl Confiscated, which was kind of like their affordable entry into Kentucky Owl. They should have expanded that a little bit, make it more affordable so people can get their hands on Kentucky Owl. Then you do the LEs here and there where people can buy them. Don't just keep peppering us with $500 releases. Nobody was going to buy that shit. Their Mardi Gras release that was finished in rum casks for like $500, nobody was buying that shit. Come on. It's just, I don't know who was pulling the strings there, but it was dumb. It was dumb. Bad decisions. So there you go. Stoli sucks even for vodka. I think Jason is sour on Boss Hog after he paid bucks for one, and it was just okay in my opinion. I enjoyed the Boss Hog, but yeah, $499 was steep for what it was. And now the new one, I'm actually really interested in the new one with all the Indian spices, but even that one is crazy money too. So, all right, let's try the 135th. The 135th is amazing. So this has everything. It's got stone fruit, it's got dark fruit, it's got spice, it's got texture. Yeah, Brent Elliott outdid himself with that blend. Holy crap. So this is interesting. I want to go to 2024 now. What's up, Travis Robeson? What's going on, man? Surprised Fred Minnick. Surprised Fred Minnick hasn't started a distillery or bought one. You know, having talks with Fred Minnick here and there, like, you know, I'm not going to say super recently, but somewhat recently. I think he knows the market and he knows it's a terrible time right now to start a whiskey brand unless you have, you know, built-in sales or some sort of you know, a following already. So, you know, much like, you know, what the Bourbon Junkies are doing, and I brought that up before. You have a group like them or Bourbon Pursuit that are, you know, creating whiskeys that people have kind of followed, and they're making what people want. And if you don't have that yet, if you're just kind of sourcing whiskey and throwing it out there, it's a little bit tough right now. So, and I think he knows that. But you would think Fred Minnick, with his following, if he wanted to, he probably could. Would rather spend $500 on bacon if we were buying a hog, says Justin Jenkins. That's a big old hog, dude. Shit. K. Luke Whiskey Company's here. Did K. Luke come into the fold? Oh shit. Is that Jonathan Maison? Jonathan, we talked about you with Brent Elliott. We told him he's got to try some K. Luke because I feel like your blends are modeled after what Four Roses does. So I think you got to send Brent some samples, dude. I think he'd be really impressed with what you guys do. So just saying, just putting it out there, man. All right, let's try the 2024. Yeah, the 2024 compared to the 135th, the 2024 has the it's got this really rich. It's probably the least fruit forward out of the four of these. This is the 2024 to me is more rye, caramel, vanilla, those really rich notes of brown sugar that you love in Four Roses. Little hint of cherry on the back end of that one. Again, the tobacco is there, but it's more of like that rich vanilla caramel, those hefty, like classic bourbon notes that you like compared to the other three. Whereas the 135th just takes you all over the place. 135th is that's a hell of a ride right there. Yeah. What's the best K. Luke available? I don't know if batch 10 is still available, but if batch 10 is still available, the barrel strength, I highly recommend people try that one. I'm not sure if that one. So K. Luke, I did read today, just released some other limited editions. And Jonathan, if you're in the chat, if you want to let the chat know like what you did release, because I was at work today. I didn't really get a chance to read what was released. I reached out to Brent and tell him you said I owe him a bottle. Yeah, you do. You do owe him a bottle. But what were the releases that you were releasing here at the end of the year, K. Luke? I'm just curious. Travis, Jason, there was a release of a 13-year-old Dickel juice that was aged in used barrels the entire time. 70 barrels, they were $90. Cautiously, would you take the plunge? 122 proof. You know what? I would take the plunge on that, Trav. Listen, George Dickel barrels at 13 years old generally don't hit that proof point. So if you can get one at that proof, I would actually, and I always say this, that's the only time I like George Dickel is when when the proof is higher. When the proof is high on the George Dickel's, those George Dickel higher aged barrels, they can be absolute orange brown sugar bombs. But again, you know, you're still rolling a dice on it because you never know. But at 122 proof, That's a way higher proof than you can normally get from George Dickel. I would roll the dice on it. And Trav, if you taste it and it's good, get me one. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, batch 4 K Luke was very special. Absolutely. A bunch of K. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Brooks. It's a bunch of special releases that came out. Hey, what's up, Gene? Nice to see you, buddy. I'm seeing K Luke batch 10 at Liquor Barn. So here's the thing: the sample I got, I really loved, but I haven't tried the bottle yet. I don't know if there was some variation there. So yeah, I'm not sure, but the sample of the 10 I got was freaking delicious. Where is the bottle of 10? I could probably crack it open right now. I know I have one somewhere. This is what happens when you have too much effing whiskey. It's somewhere. Damn it. Thought it'd be right there. I have a 10 somewhere, man. Is this it? Is this a 10? What is this one? Oh, that's 8. I'll find it. We'll try it next week again. Remind me. All right, let me go back to this here. Oh, batch 2, the cap finish just released. Holy shit. That cap finish was crazy. The Keenan Reserve, John Cloud. Dude, if the Keenan Reserve is available, you get that shit immediately. That thing is a beast. I really like 22. '23 is definitely more rye forward, but I like that. It's heavy on the K, as he said. Angels Envy Cast 2020. Lonnie, I said at the beginning of this year, I'm not buying any more Angels Envy special releases. I'm just kind of over it. If anybody wants to send me a sample, I'll review it, but I'm not buying a $200 and something bottle. The bottle I do want to check out, I am going to purchase this weekend, is the Remus Gatsby 2024. Everybody is telling me that it is unbelievably good. I skipped it thinking, it's probably good, but I'm not going to spend $250 on it. But people are saying it's a game changer. I don't know what to believe. I might just have to buy one myself and check it out. I need to try one of those Kalu single barrels, Keenan and Kel batch on it. Top Jimmy for sure. But so fucking Beavers, you need to like finished whiskey though. It's got a heavy finish on it. I'm just warning you now. If you don't like heavy finishes, then don't buy it. But if you don't mind a heavy like wine finish on a whiskey, but it works, then you'll enjoy it. Yeah, it's $250. Dude, the 135th is just I think the 135th is still my favorite. 135th, I think is first place. Second place, I'll probably go back to the 21. I love the 21, then 22, and then 24. I think 24 out of this grouping is my last place, even though the 24 is really, really good. I just think compared to the other ones, I think 24, the issue it has is that it just doesn't have the complexity and some of those other flavors that I'm finding in the other ones. Again, more of those classic flavors, which doesn't make it bad, but I really miss those punches of like stone fruit and dark fruit and some of these tobacco and sweet tobacco notes that I'm finding in the other expressions here. Oh, damn. All right. I'm going to make my own LE. See how this turns out. Look at that. That's the blend to end all blends right there. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. Look at it. FOMO is fading, says James Morgan. The Gatsby is $280 at my local. Yeah, that's a lot, dude. Yeah, $280. Damn. Yeah, it's a Russo pour. She's a Butte Clark. She is a Butte Clark. Speaking of Clark, gonna have a little water. Yeah, what do we got coming up, guys? So next interview, coming down the pipeline, Bruce Russell. The grandson of Jimmy Russell, the son of Eddie Russell, will be on the channel at some point soon. We're just working out a date. So we will talk about all things Wild Turkey 15 year, and of course Wild Turkey rye whiskeys, which Bruce Russell's kind of focusing on. Kind of see what the future of that is. So that'll be coming up here the next. I'll get a date. I can't even speculate what the date will be on that, but another fun episode of that coming up. Then after that, I have a couple of other ideas that I'm working on. And then as we get into the new year. But in the meantime, we have a lot of blending to get through in the next several weeks. It's going to be a fun time leading through Christmas all the way into the new year until it culminates in a very special fundraiser for St. Jude's Children's Hospital, which is going to be, I think, incredible this year. I have a Weller Full Proof I'm throwing in there. I have a lot of really great bottles so I'm going to be in Kentucky next weekend with the Bourbon Hunter podcast. We'll be kind of bouncing around the entire town, figuring out, and I'm just going to be looking to grab some bottles just to like put into the giveaway for the fundraiser. So we might work it differently this year. I'm looking to work with a different fundraiser portal than using GoFundMe. So we'll see how that works out. But so Jelly, this let's see, that's almost a Russo pour. Damn, oh shit, heck yeah. All things turkey, super pour. The Master Drum, when will you do a big old blend like that? Do you actually finish it? And if not, what do you do with it when it's left over? So my whole kind of thing was to, if I made like my own Four Roses blend, was to fill this up with it. This beautiful decanter. Now that we're kind of full screen, look how beautiful this decanter is. There you go. You get a good look at it. I mean, it is beautiful. I mean, it looks like it's made of diamonds. It's not. I mean, it's glass, but it's old school. When I looked it up, it's from the 70s. And I think I'm fixing to make a really great blend and just throw it in here. So whatever I don't finish might be the base that ends up in here tonight. But I might finish this. So before we sign off, let's see how good this is. Kroger's are gems. Don't overlook them. How far out are you to announcing your brand and partner, says JG? I mean, I think it's going to be within December, January. So we're really close. Like unbelievably close that I can't stand it. So I am working on my own whiskey brand, guys. It's not going to be a shelfer. You won't be able to get it on shelves. It'll only be through Patreon and my partner. And it's going to be exciting. These are going to be whiskeys that I want to blend, that I want to create, that I think taste amazing. I have kind of a menu of barrels I could work with, and I could not be more excited to bring this to you guys. So, yeah, if you trust my palate, you're going to love these whiskeys. So I'll get into some more detail as time goes on here in the next several weeks, but hopefully I think we are closer than we've ever been. So yeah, we're getting there. So what are your top 5 Christmas songs, and when do we get a Whiskey Tube charity single? All right, before we sign off tonight, top 5 Christmas songs. Let's get into it. All right, top 5 Christmas songs. These are pretty easy for me because there's very specific songs that I love that kind of mean a lot to me, that I've always I always listen to each and every year. Number 5 would be Sleigh Ride by, what is it, the Ronettes? I think it is. Sleigh Ride by the Ronettes might be my number 5. There's just something about that song. I don't know. Just has like a cool beat to it. I love that song. Number 4 would be number 4. What would number 4 be? I would probably put the Do They Know It's Christmas Time, the kind of the collab with like all the different British singers. Do They Know It's Christmas Time? I like that one a lot. That would probably be number 4. Number 3. Shoot, I can go straight up. Like number 3 might be number 3. I think I would go. Yeah, Dominic the Donkey, as much as I love that song, it probably wouldn't be in my top 5 as typical as that would be. Yeah. Number 5, yeah, F that Grinch guy lurking, he took my gifts. I think number 3 would be for me Dean Martin, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. There's something about that song that gets me in the mood for Christmas every year. Dean Martin, just the way he sings it, I love that song. Number two is easily. Now, I can't stand the song Jingle Bells, but Jingle Bells, the way Frank Sinatra sings it, I love that song. Or, that's probably a 2-parter. Jingle Bells and Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas from Frank Sinatra. I could swap both of those at number 2. Those are my favorite Sinatra songs that he sings for the holidays. Jingle Bells, Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. I can listen to those all day long. Number 1, and I know it's kind of, it's kind of a favorite. It's Nat King Cole. It's Nat King Cole, man. That song, every time, Chestnuts Roasting on Open Fire, every time I hear that song, I instantly get in the mood for Christmas. So that'd be my number 1. And you know what? It's just like one of those songs that has always played in the household growing up. Yeah, Bing Crosby, White Christmas, I feel like, that would definitely be a top 10, but I don't think it's a top 5 for me. But yeah, it would be up there. That's probably number 6, to be honest, if I'm thinking about it. And then number 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, you could go top 10 easily. I mean, you have Andy Williams, you have, the Mariah Carey song, as much as they painstakingly kill us with that song. You kind of do hear it and you kind of get in the mood a little bit. Little Drummer. So the Little Drummer Boy, the duet with Bing Crosby and David Bowie. That duet for Little Drummer Boy, if it's going to be Drummer Boy, it's going to be that version. That's definitely in my top 10. Yeah. And then of course, as Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer, you gotta have that song in the rotation. Oh man, gotta love it. It's also a Wham! Last Christmas. And one of an underrated song is Christmas Rapping. I forgot who the artist is, but it's a song that sounds like Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year. Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas. Like, I forgot who sings that song, but that's how it goes. The Alvin and the Chipmunks song. That's a good call out for sure. The Waitresses. Thank you, John Legalbo. Dude, thank you so much for knowing that. That would have drove me nuts. Yeah, that song. I think that's an underrated song for sure. DMX has a Christmas song. What song is that? Yes, the Bourbon Coach. Yep, nailed it. This blend is not working. It's not working. It gets actually a little bitter on the back end. I think it's because of all the ultra aged whiskeys in there, and when you kind of combine it, it just goes flat. This will not be entering the decanter, the beautiful decanter. Yeah. That British song, Do They Know It's Christmas at All? I think it was number 4 on your list. 15, super effed up if you need the lyrics. It's super effed up if you need the. Is it really that? Is it that messed up? I missed when you. Oh my God, Run DMC, Christmas in Hollis. I love that song. Oh, I may have to rethink this list, guys. I may have to come back with a more legit list next week because I'm going off the cuff, and I'm definitely missing songs. Growing up in New York. I love that Run DMC song. All right, this is going to have to be rewind, and we're going to have to redo this next week. So when we're doing this next week on Blendageddon, we'll have our guest judge on. We'll go through some Christmas songs. We will do that. So guys, thank you so much for hanging out tonight. Thanks for the support. Thanks for all the likes. If you're new to the channel, you subscribe tonight. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed the conversation with Brent Elliott. It was absolutely fascinating. And yeah, we have a lot more fun content here coming up in the next couple weeks. Obviously, unfortunately, Christmas Day and New Year's Day fall on Wednesday nights, which kind of sucks. I might go live one of those days for a little bit. We'll see how it shakes out, but who knows? But love you guys. Thanks for all the support. And as always, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Keep an eye out on the next episodes of my advent calendar. It's been so much fun. The Grinch, we have a lot of surprises in store as we get through the month here. So cheers, and we'll see you next week right here on the Master and Drum. Cheers, folks. I don't know if I should drink this again. It's actually getting better. I think I just need some time to mingle. Cheers, guys. Patrons, live stream, private live stream happening right after this. So stay tuned. Cheers, guys.